All right. So we are recording. Um, Guys, as this room populates, I just want to say hello to everybody again. Appreciate all of you out there joining in. I'm here with Coach Dave Love, a shooting guru, coach, if you don't mind me saying, a shooting nerd, kind of like me. From what I know about you, you look at this like nobody else in the world does. So, Coach, I wanted to say thank you. You know, while we were live, I really appreciate you jumping on. These are just crazy times, obviously, and this is such a cool opportunity for us to try to raise the floor a little bit, you know, engage people from all over the world. Your time is valuable, and you've made it a point to share it with us. So I wanted to say thank you. And then to all the attendees that are populating this room as we speak, I wanted to encourage all of you to use that Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. I'll assess, you know, I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions. And as Coach wraps up his presentation about a quarter till the hour, I'll bring some of those questions to Coach Love, and we'll get to as many as we can. Okay. And then if Coach at the end, if there's a way these coaches can reach out to you, maybe an email or via social media, we'll get them that information as well at the end. But for now, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to give it over to you, Coach. And man, thank you so much again for being with us.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks to you guys for everything that you've done to promote the game and offer this opportunity to all of us to learn from each other and grow. So thanks to the attendees for being a part of this. I want to kind of jump right into my presentation. Now let me find the screen that I want to share. So we're going to talk about how I assess a player's shot and how you can use it to become a shooting coach, understand the misses that the players have, and learn to help players make more shots themselves. So a little about me before we get too far into it. I've worked for 3 different NBA teams, the Phoenix Suns in 2009-10, the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2013-14, and the Orlando Magic from 2014 to 2018. Have worked with dozens of NBA players. I'm proud to say that all of them have shot a career high in my time working with them, and hundreds of college players across North America. So I want to give you a glimpse into a process that I follow, and I'm going to try to make this process appear as linear and easy to understand as I possibly can. But please understand, it's not necessarily a linear process. That even though I may present something last here today, it might be something that is the first thing that I notice. And so don't feel like you have to make this a linear process yourself, and don't feel like you have to copy the way that I'm doing it. This is my own process that I follow, and I want to give you a glimpse into that. Please just pull ideas that make sense to you and resonate with you, and incorporate them into the way that you assess a player shot as well. So my goal isn't to say everybody should be doing it this way. This is just me sharing how I assess a player shot, and the things that I try and look for to inspire you, so that you can possibly improve the way that you do it. So before we get too far into it, I want to really make sure that we understand the physics of shooting, because this plays a huge role in determining what we need to work on with a player when we're assessing. Basically, the body creates energy, and we give that energy to the basketball. And if it were possible to get every part of our body generating only positive energy, then players would never miss offline. Okay, so what is positive energy? It's energy that we create that goes at the target or straight up in the air. If every part of your body as a shooter is able to create energy either at the target or straight up in the air, we'd never miss offline. Unfortunately, we're human beings, and we do generate negative energy, which is really energy that's created in any direction except for at the target or straight up in the air. It does happen. It will always happen. And we can still make shots when it happens, but the more that we can reduce the negative energy that we create and try to get towards positive, the more shots, the more consistent we're going to be, and the more shots we're going to make. So always keeping in mind as we go through this process, I always look for, are different parts of the body creating energy at the target or straight up in the air? If they are, great, we want to keep those habits. And if they're not, we need to look to see if those are dramatically affecting the path of the ball. Because really, shooting is just simple physics. The ball goes in the opposite direction of the force that we apply to it. Okay? If we apply force to the right side of the basketball, the ball goes to the left. If we apply force to the back of the basketball, the ball goes forward. If we get underneath it, it goes up. And so if we can understand these simple things and incorporate these simple ideas, we're going to make more shots because of it. So, and understand why we're missing the shots that we do. So when I'm meeting a new player for the first time, I will have tried to watch video, and as much video as I possibly can on players, because now within the professional levels, we do have access to Synergy, and I can see every shot that the player has shot in their career if it's on Synergy. I will definitely do that, but I find that I learn the more in the first 5 minutes in the gym with a player than I do watching all of their shots on video. So I will watch all of them, I will start to form an opinion, and then I really use these first 5 minutes to determine whether that opinion might be correct or whether it was misguided. TV can lie. TV can makes it difficult to see details, and it really messes with the what we see as the arc of the shot in particular. So it's very hard to see some things with video. I focus more on the first 5 minutes in person than all of the video that I see combined. In those first 5 minutes, I want to start with a simple environment. I want to see what a player does when they are fully in control of their shot. I want to see what their habits are in an environment like free throws. And so I create a really simple environment for the player, just so I can see what they're intending to do most often. And then the theory being, we're not trying to see what mistakes they make. We're trying to really find out what are the habits that they have. I don't want to necessarily in the first 5 minutes figure out what mistakes do they make out of every 20 shots, like one time out of every 20 shots. I want to see what are the habits that they have 18 of those 20, and then focus in on those habits as opposed to the mistake. Generally, if a player makes or has a habit in a simple environment, in a controlled free throw environment, then they're going to have the same habit, and possibly even only magnified in the when we start to add movement or speed or the layers that make the game what it is. So I want to start with a simple environment, confirm what the habits are, and then add in a little speed and movement to see if those habits stay consistent with what I saw in the controlled environment. Now, in that controlled environment, what am I looking for first? The first thing I'm watching is the spin of the basketball. And I want to see, I use that as an indicator of whether the middle of the hand has pushed the middle of the basketball. And I'm going to go into more detail on these first three things in a moment. But first thing I'm looking for is spin of the basketball. Does the middle of the hand push the middle of the ball? Next thing I'm looking for is the arc of the ball. Do they give the ball enough arc to give the ball a chance to go through the hoop regularly? And then their balance. Does the player create balance are they wide enough within their feet so that they can stop the movement, the negative energy that they create when moving on the floor, and have a chance to keep their shot as simple as possible in difficult situations? So those are the three things that I'm really trying to assess in those first 5 minutes working with a player. Okay? So spin of the ball, let's start with that. This is an indicator. I'm not necessarily going to be trying to fix the spin of the ball. I'm using the spin of the ball to indicate whether the middle of their hand has pushed the middle of the ball along the target line. So in this photograph on the left-hand side, we've got the middle of their hand underneath the center of the basketball. If they lift straight up from that position, the ball is going to go straight, okay? And when it goes straight, it will be spinning purely. So I'm using the spin of the ball to see if the hand has pushed the middle of the ball along the target line. If we look at the middle of the photograph, this ball is not going to spin purely. We're pushing the right side of the ball slightly more than the left, and even if we lift straight up in the air from that position, because we're pushing the middle of the right side of the ball more than the left, the ball won't spin purely, and it won't consistently go straight. So I'm using the spin of the ball to see if they are in a position to get the ball to go straight. Then the photograph on the right, they're not on the middle of the ball. They're not pushing the middle of or along the target line. This is definitely not going to spin straight, and it's going to be or spin purely. And it's going to be even more difficult for this player to keep this ball consistently on line with the target. So first thing I'm checking is this ball spinning purely? If it is, they pushed in such a way that will allow them to keep the ball on line with the target fairly consistently, okay? The next thing I'm checking will be the arc of the basketball. Now, the people at NOAA who have their device to measure arc say that the optimal arc is around 45 degrees as an entry angle. And based on my eye test, I would agree with that. I believe they say 43 to 47 is the ideal. I think we all understand that if we get a smaller or a flatter trajectory than that, that we end up with a smaller target to shoot at. That if you look at the graphics at the bottom of this graphic here, once we get into the 35-degree range, there isn't much wiggle room for the ball to fit through. And if we can get into the 50-degree range, there is a lot more wiggle room for the ball to fit through. There is more surface area for the ball to go through the hoop. So it took me a little while to understand why was more arc bad, and if flat is bad, why is too much arc also bad? And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I finally understood that when you shoot with a high arc, the little differences in power and trajectory will be a big difference in distance. So if a player is intending to shoot with 55-degree arc, yes, they have a very large target to fit through, which is good. But if they accidentally hit 56 degrees, the difference in distance will be much more significant than if they intended 45 and they got 46. So at 45 and 46 degrees, the difference may only be about a centimeter or a quarter of an inch. Whereas if you get into the higher arcs, 1 degree of difference or a slightly more force could be several inches. And so we want to be able, there will be that variety. We want to hit an arc at which the variety of the power or arc that we put on the basketball keeps the ball within that a fairly tight window. So so I'm looking to see, does the arc of the basketball give the ball enough of a chance to go through the hoop, but not so much arc that is going to make distance control difficult. I should say that the measuring stick that I use when I don't have a system like the NOAA is the top of the backboard on free throws. And please understand that different distances will impact that reference point. So on free throws, the top of the backboard will be a good reference point for the apex of the ball. But if we're at the 3-point line, we'll probably need to be a good 2 or 3 feet above that even, and maybe even more in the 4 or 5 foot range to get that same 45-degree entry angle. So first thing I'm looking for is, does the spin of the ball indicate that they're pushing the middle of the ball along the target line and therefore have a chance to keep the ball in line? And then does their arc give the ball a fairly good sized target to fit through without the troubles of controlling the distance. I forgot those graphics were there, I'll be completely honest with you. Then the next thing I'm looking for is the balance. And I'm asking myself basically the question of, does their balance prepare them only for the best case scenario, like only the open shots where they're not moving and there's no negative energy? Or are their feet wide enough to prepare them for the worst case scenarios that are going to happen in game? Are their feet wide enough so that when they are creating negative energy by moving sideways, by drifting, by curling, and rotating their body, when a defender might be leaning on them, are they wide enough within their feet to stop the negative energy that it is going to happen? If a player is very narrow with their feet, it's going to be very tough for them to stop the negative energy. Their base is not wide enough. And so I want to really make sure that I understand, is the way that they use their feet going to help them in the situations that we know that we're going to face in game? Are their feet going to help them keep their shot repeatable? So just to recap, does the spin of the ball indicate that they're going to push the middle of the ball with the middle of their hand, which is going to cause the ball to go straight? So remember, the spin is an indicator of what the common result is going to be. We're not trying to fix the spin. We're trying to use the spin to figure out if they're making a mistake. Do they lift the basketball enough to give the ball a chance to go through a large target while controlling the distance? And are they stable enough for the situations that they're going to face? Is their body in a position where they're going to be able to shoot shots in games, or are they only prepared to shoot shots in the most simple environments that rarely happen in games and happen all the time in individual workouts? Once we kind of figured out what some of these indicators might be, what some of the problems might be, we're working backwards to figure out what is the cause of the problem. So flat arc isn't what we're fixing. We're going to work backwards still to figure out what is causing flat arc. Poor spin or not pushing the middle of the ball isn't what we're fixing. We're working backwards to figure out what body positions are causing us to push the right side of the ball more than the left. And then we're going to work to try and fix those. So I want to check the hand position on the basketball. Hand position on the ball determines the spin of the ball and determines offline misses. So we need to figure out what the middle of their hand is, and is their hand underneath the middle of the basketball. So as soon as I see bad spin, I'll be moving to a position on the floor where I can check, is their hand underneath the basketball? What is the middle of their hand, and does it get underneath the center of the ball at their set point? Then I'll be looking to see, do they actually push along the target line? Now we're trying to ascertain what are the habits that are causing the flaw that we're seeing. If I see poor arc, okay, is their hand getting underneath the basketball in a position to lift? And then is their elbow actually creating a lifting motion? Okay. And when I'm checking their body position, we're looking for, is their body in a position to be repeatable in games? Okay. Are they comfortable with a body position that is athletic and also stable? Okay. If they don't get into an athletic body position in these simple situations like free throws, that in this workout when we're trying to assess their shot, if they're not in those game body positions, then they're not going to be, one of two things is going to happen. They're either not going to be comfortable with the positions when they get into them in games, or they're going to try to get into an unathletic body position in the game, and because this is an athletic sport, the position isn't going to help them. Okay. Then we need to understand that there is a cause and effect in a lot of these habits. So some of the mistakes that we might be seeing when we work backwards one level, might actually be caused by something else if we work back another level. So we have to be aware of this, and we have to figure out, is this issue potentially caused by another issue? So you may need to continue to work backwards. I try and determine the direction of the mistake and see if there's anything else earlier in the shot that might be causing energy in the opposite direction. So what do I mean by that? Okay, I see the ball isn't spinning purely. I'm going to then check to see what is the hand position on the basketball. Are they getting underneath the middle of the ball, or are they potentially off to one side? If I then see that their hand is over off to the right side of the basketball, that would push the ball to the left. I'm then going to have to work backwards one more layer to see, do they need to push the ball to the right because or to the left, because some other part of their body is generating energy to the right? So you need to go backwards and just see, is this the real cause, or is this potentially caused by something else earlier in the shot? If you see a ball going to the right, you see a guide hand pushing, then that would push, for a right-handed shooter, that would push the ball to the right. We may work backwards to find, okay, that is because the hand position is over on the right side of the ball, pushing the ball to the left. You may need to then go another layer and see, is the player potentially leaning onto their right side? That would cause the ball to go to the right, which they need to cancel out by pushing to the left, which they'll need to cancel out. And you need to understand all of that information before you really start to work on any one of these flaws. So work backwards one time, but then continue to work back until you're left with nothing, indicating the most common miss. Okay? See a flat shot, work backwards to see what position would be causing the flat position, and we're going to talk about some of these in a second, and then continue to work backwards to see if there are additional potential causes. What are some of these potential causes? All of these potential causes, I'm going to assume that the shooter is right-handed. So flip these for left-handed shooter. If you see common left misses, you see poor rotation and the ball most often going to the left, there's really only a couple of things that could cause the ball to go to the left. Shooting hand on the right side of the basketball. So we're checking, as soon as you see the ball consistently spinning purely, you'll be looking to see, okay, which direction do they tend to miss to? If you're seeing a lot more left misses than right misses, check to see, is their hand over on the right side of the basketball? Okay, I pay a lot of attention to the hand position at the set point, because I feel like that is where a lot of mistakes, they get magnified. Either they lead into that, or they flare out of that set point, and a lot of the mistakes come to a head at that set point. Be aware, players can be in the right position at the set point. I had this issue with Tristan Thompson where he would have the middle of his hand on the middle of the basketball, but then the ball wasn't spinning purely, and he was having trouble controlling the direction of the basketball. But, well, if he's on the middle of the ball with the middle of the hand, why is he missing offline? Why is the ball not spinning purely? That doesn't match with the physics. And then I took slow motion video of his shot and discovered he started in the right position. Then his first move out was to leave the middle of the ball and get over onto the right side. And so then we had he's in the right position here, but as he starts to lift the ball, he comes out of position. So just be aware of that. You see left misses, check to see, are they rotating their body to the left? Are they turning their body as they're shooting? That's going to create energy to the left. And are they potentially aimed to the left or leaning left when they originate their shot, when they start their shooting motion? You see left misses, it's really only potentially caused by about those three problems. If you're seeing right misses, I'm going to check to see if the middle of their hand is underneath the left side of the basketball. This is really common with players who think that the middle of finger is the middle of their hand, and for most players it's actually not. Okay? If you put the middle finger on the middle of the basketball, you're covering this side of the ball far more than you're covering that side of the basketball. If the middle finger is underneath the center of the ball, your hand is going to be pushing the ball off to the right, okay, as a right-handed shooter. So we need to be aware of what the middle of their hand is, and then potentially is their guide hand pushing, because the guide hand is on the left side of the ball. If it pushes at all, it's going to be pushing the left side of the ball more than the right. The ball is going to go to the right. And then really this last one is kind of a combination of those two ideas. If they bring the ball up the left side of their body as a right-handed shooter, they're into this kind of position, their shooting hand isn't underneath the middle of the basketball. They're going to have to push with the guide hand to make up for the mistake that the shooting hand isn't underneath the middle of the ball. This is going to push the ball potentially off to the right, although these players tend to get both left and right misses. If you see a flat shot, be aware that most short shots, don't think short, think flat. Okay? And most short misses are actually caused by flat shots. Rarely is this a matter of, if you see short, is this a matter of you're not shooting it hard enough? More often than not, it means you need to lift the basketball more. So when I see players consistently hitting the front rim, I don't say shoot it harder, I say lift it more, or something to the effect of lift it more. So now I'm checking to see, is the hand underneath the ball at the set point? And this would be more when I'm looking from the side angle. If I'm looking for online misses, I would probably stand behind the player more. If I'm looking for, I see a flat shot, I'll stand more to the side and see, is their hand underneath the basketball as opposed to getting on the back of the basketball. Then if they are getting underneath, but it's a flat shot, I'll be looking to see, do they create a lifting motion? If we get underneath the basketball well, we're in a position to lift. Now we have to make sure that we actually do lift. And there are a lot of players, especially young players, who either won't get underneath the basketball, they'll get it on the back of the basketball, pushing it forward, or they do get underneath, but then they make this kind of a move, or they get the ball back above their head, and they're not able to lift their elbow anymore, and it becomes a forward motion. We need a low elbow with a lifting motion to be able to get arc on the basketball. If it truly is a lack of power, and you see this more with older players than younger players, or sorry, you see this with younger players, but there's not a lot that we can do about it because it's a physical strength issue. I'm talking more about older players who have the physical strength, but sometimes seem to still lack power. They get good arc on the basketball, but they can't seem to get the ball to the rim. This usually has to do with the synchronization of their legs. And the most common flaw is that they push with their legs as they're lifting the ball from triple threat position. Then they get to the beginning of their shooting motion and their legs are gone, and they're only left with the arm part of the motion. We want to keep the legs engaged until the ball gets to the set point, then push with the legs and the arm at the same time and get everything firing together from that set point. So if you see lack of power, check the synchronization of their legs. Okay. So just to recap on this, we're looking for where does the most common miss go, and then what position or what move would cause that miss, and keep working backwards a couple of layers, because the feet can affect the position of the hands on the basketball. So this has been just kind of a glimpse into the way that I try to assess shots. And I'm happy to spend the next half hour answering questions, specific questions that you may have. But if you want more help, there's a couple of things. Oops, I'm out of order here. I would love for you to go to my free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com. Okay. I have 80 emails all about shooting mechanics, programmed to go out over the course of a year. And I've set it up now where you can select the topic that you want to learn about first and do a bit of a deeper dive into that topic. Some of the topics include balance and guide hand usage, hand position, arc, And so you can get a whole ton of free information on CoachDaveLove.com. You can get in my store a video shot analysis done, where you send me video of your shot or a player's shot, and I can send back 15 minutes of me talking about what I see over top of the video. So you will see the video being played in slow motion, pause where I want to, where I draw on it, show you, okay, your set point is here, we want the set point to be there, draw what that would look like, show you why it matters. You get a 15-minute video back in return of me showing you the things that I noticed within your shooting mechanics. So you can get a video shot analysis done, or I have online workout programs, which are basically 7 workouts of progressive drills to learn how to improve the most common bad habits like balance, arc, and guide hand. So I show you how to isolate the habit that is causing the mistake in the first place, learn to do that differently, and then progressively do more difficult drills to build a new habit. And these are all the same drills I do with my NBA players to help them improve. And so you can look for those online workout programs on CoachDaveLove.com/store. And as a thank you to the people who have come to the clinic here, I want to offer a coupon code. Use social distance 10 on CoachDaveLove.com/store. Social distance 10. Please use the capital S and the capital D, and you'll save 10% on anything in the store there. So so look for that, CoachDaveLove.com for the newsletter, and CoachDaveLove.com/store. Use the promo code social distance 10. So happy to jump in now, Chris, if you want to come in and let me know. I think there's some questions.
Yeah, there's a few there, Coach. I think you can see some of them as well.
Go in here.
One, I can throw one at you just to get us started. One was asking about if you have any thoughts on, some players are more ambidextrous than others. Some have fine motor skills in their right hand, but they shoot it left-handed. Do you have any, excuse me, do you have any thoughts or persuasions on whether players, and maybe at different levels, should try to revert back to their dominant hand in shooting the basketball?
Meaning you worry that they're shooting with the wrong hand in the first place?
Yeah, I think this particular coach is asking, like, hey, I'm actually a left-handed guy, but I was taught to shoot right-handed. Just, sometimes that happens, especially overseas. Coaches, just everybody's a right-hander in certain places. So I guess he's asking, do you have any thoughts on whether that particular player should try to shift back?
Yeah, this is basically what I did with Tristan Thompson, that he was very ambidextrous to the point when he was a youth player, he was shooting, like, he'd shoot one shot with his right hand and then one shot with his left hand. And his youth coach said to him, you got to pick one and then get good at that one rather than being average at both of them. And he said, well, I don't know which one to pick. They both feel comfortable. And the coach asked him, which hand do you write with? And he said, well, I write with my left hand. And he said, perfect, shoot with your left hand. I probably would have asked the same question before working with Tristan. And now what I've learned is the question I'm going to ask now is not which hand do you write with. I would just hand you the basketball and say, throw it as far as you can. Like, don't just take this basketball and throw it. Oh, perfect. You want to throw it with your right hand? That's the hand that we're going to shoot with. That this becomes more of your fine motor skills, but this is more of your gross motor skill. Shooting is a gross motor skill. Let's go with that. So that's kind of how I would determine. It's really, you kind of have to go by the results. How the Cavaliers made the decision on Tristan for the first 2 years of his career shot left-handed, and all of his college career shot left-handed. And the reason they made the decision as a group to switch to right-handed was based on results. He would it started off as a joke. He would just challenge guys to contests at the end of practice to win money and win bets, and would dominate guys with what was his weak hand. Turns out it probably wasn't his weak hand. And so they started to see, wait a second, that looks better. he shoots it better and he gets better results. And they kept doing more and more serious testing around, hey, let's shoot 100 free throws left-handed, shoot 100 free throws right-handed. Let's see which one you made more. And he actually made more right-handed without any experience with the right hand. So that was the evidence that they needed to say, okay, there's something here. We should be maybe considering that switch. So I think that's kind of the process that you need to go through. It's not just a decision on a whim. Oh, you went 0 for 7 today, to more or less try right-handed. It should be over the course of time with some science, loose science behind why you're making the decision that you're making.
Gotcha. No, that's great, Coach. Thank you for that. There's another question on here. It's got several components. Some of them I think you addressed. So I'm going to pull a couple of things out of this question. One is just thoughts, and you contextually sort of addressed this, but just to reiterate, and we had a bunch of people kind of jump on after the first few minutes as well. So thoughts on finding the seams, fingertips, do you get those things in the groove when you can? Do you get them in there all the time? Do you never get them in there? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a comfort thing. And so I think we all, as shooters ourselves, have a comfortable way of using the seams in our hands, that when we get it, that it sends your confidence through the roof. And maybe even your percentage is slightly higher as well. So if you have the time to do what is comfortable, and I kind of have the same feelings about footwork. If you have the time to do the wrong footwork in a game, but it increases the chances you're going to make the shot, I don't care what the footwork was. I care about the result. Now, if you don't have time to find the seams, you don't have time. And so I would rather you still, I would hope you still have the base level of comfort to be able to make shots when you don't find the seams perfectly. But if you have the time to find them like you like, then absolutely go ahead and do it. So I kind of work out. There'll be times if I see a guy in a workout slowing down to find the seams because he's doing a one on air workout, then it'll just say like, okay, no adjusting the ball anymore. You gotta,
Right.
But then saying at times, okay, this is wide open. Like
Right.
this, imagine this one being wide open. If you want to adjust the seams, go ahead and do it. So.
That's great. I want to remind our audience, we have coaches that are watching that coach same level of player. Not too many guys that are coaching NBA players, but there's a lot of guys that are working with professionals, collegiate level athletes. But there's also a lot of coaches that are working with youth and development youth. And so I just wanted to mention to these coaches, especially, when Coach Love is presenting these certain concepts, you mentioned right away kind of your clientele, who you're working with. We can often, as instructors, I think you'd probably agree, we could take some extra time, lower down the totem pole to really try to reinforce, habits and mechanics. But the higher level, time is of essence. There's a closeout coming by a very athletic guy or gal, and we need to get that shot up in the air.
Absolutely.
The other part of that question, it sort of alluded to the dip. Coaches talk about on the reception. There's a bunch of different methodologies on, how to address that. Some coaches are being deliberate about teaching it now. Some coaches are, still being deliberate about avoiding it. Any just, kind of thoughts or prescriptions regarding the dip?
Yeah, absolutely. I have strong opinions on it, but not necessarily to one degree or the other. My strong opinion is that a dip takes longer. Okay, if you catch the ball at shoulder height, it takes longer to drop it down to your waist, get it back to where it was initially and through. It does take longer, but it generates more power. That getting the ball lower and lifting through this high set point does generate more power. So I want to be really clear with the players I work with. I want your shot to be as efficient as possible. And with longer shots, we do need more power. So I can't tell, especially a youth player or a smaller player, like, hey, if you catch it at your forehead, from the NBA 3-point line, just shoot it from your forehead because it's more efficient. They do need to generate the power. So the teaching point that I give is we don't want to dip the ball if it's not necessary, but we're happy to if it is necessary. So it is a power generation thing. There shouldn't really necessarily be I don't think, a hard, fast rule about it that absolutely no, absolutely yes. It should be a case-by-case basis for each player and each shot, but the habits of the player should be to be as efficient as possible. Don't dip the ball when you're standing underneath the rim and you catch it at your forehead. Don't drop it down to lift it up. You don't need the rhythm. You don't need the power. You're standing 2 feet from the basket. Get the ball in the basket quickly. But you will need to dip it if you're standing 30 feet from the basket. So those are my opinions.
Coach, I've done a ton of these myself, not probably not at the level that you have, but that's one of the more well articulate answers on that I've heard. Because
nobody ever
really,
me being well articulated, so thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
It is. It's just I think as coaches we get so circumstantial sometimes, and we've got to, you know, as instructors in general, it can be your math teacher, it can be your shooting coach, but a lot of times we'll use generalizations appropriately wherever we can, and I think the dip and some other nuances of our shot and our fluid movement, they're not always applicable to every player in every scenario. So like you said, utilizing the dip is probably the better discussion of whether to have it or not, you know, or whether to you know, erase it or enable it. I think it's
I don't want to say for sure, like, absolutely it's right. There are situations it's not right. I don't want to say never do it, because there are situations you have to, and that's a lot of shooting, and that's where the experience of the shooting coach comes in. Is like, here's the perfect world, but hey, a basketball game's not a perfect world, and just because Steph Curry does something in a game and the ball goes in, doesn't mean that caused the ball to go in. We have to discern some facts as opposed to just going with what we see.
Right. That's awesome, Coach. We got about 5 more minutes or so here. I want to get to a couple more of these. There's another question on here that is referring to the position of the feet. You know, you showed a great visual of balance, and you used the guy I would have used in Clay. You know, some instructors, again, especially globally now, there's certain trends that see right-handed shooters, you know, leading more with that, you know, shoulder and hip, and so it turns the feet a little bit. You see other instructors keeping a very parallel. I know from, you know, being overseas so much, a lot of Serbian shooting coaches teach the parallel line of the toes to outline the rim. A lot of guys that I grew up under their tutelage, you know, shooting side foot was always lining up in the center of the rim. Do you have any general thoughts or, again, prescriptions on the foot position of the shooter?
A couple of big things on this. This is another as much as possible thing, and we need to understand positive and negative power on this one. So again, just to review, we want to create as much energy as we possibly can with as many body parts as we possibly can at the target or straight up in the air. If you're creating energy with some part of your body offline with the target, then there's a chance that's going to be given to the basketball, and you're either going to miss that direction or have to cancel it out with a mistake in the opposite direction. So the goal with our feet is to stop the bad energy and then create good. So what I do is I try to encourage players, point your toes at the target. And people will say, if you look at all the great shooters, they don't point their feet at the target when they shoot. Steph Curry doesn't. Even Klay Thompson doesn't. And everybody talks about he's the target guy. Okay, now go look at them on free throws. Okay, look at Steph Curry, points both his feet at the target. Steve Nash points his feet at the target. What happens when you point your feet at the target is, as you rock up onto your toes, your center of gravity moves up and slightly forward. It's creating positive energy. And because your center of gravity is moving up and slightly forward, your hand will be moving up and traveling forward while trying to snap the ball up and forward. So all those things work together. If you turn your feet away from the target, then as you rock up onto your toes, your center of gravity is going up and slightly to the left. That means your hand is moving slightly to the left while trying to shoot the ball forward. That doesn't work as well. And so I'll give you an illustration of what, let me share my screen here, of what happens. This is a player that has turned their feet to the left. Watch where their feet start, okay? And then watch where their feet land. And this is what's common of every shooter who turns their feet, they jump in the direction that they turn. So they're creating energy to the left. Does that help you make shots straight? I would say no. Now, if you turn your feet to the left and you just jump straight up and down, does this matter as much? No, because you're creating energy only up in the air, not at the target. But if you're jumping to the left, or even just the rocking up onto your toes moves your center of gravity probably about that much to the left, I don't believe that helps you. So does the mistake happen in games? Yes, it happens a lot, because the end of a stopping motion, the ideal way to stop the movement and the ideal way to start a shot don't perfectly align. So we do end up with mistakes, and we always will, but I try and always just focus on more energy at the target. That one got me all fired up. That was.
No, that's awesome. Me too, Coach. I'm glad, you know, we got stuff to do in families, because I think I could probably talk about this kind of stuff with you all day. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question,
Sure.
Coach,
Absolutely.
and then we'll kind of wrap up. We've had a couple of different questions since we're on the feet, talking about footwork. I'll just try to combine a couple of these inquiries. You mentioned, like, you're more concerned with the result, not so much with, you know, on the front end of the footwork. If you have time to do the wrong footwork, you'll let some of that go in your workouts. What would you suggest, Coach, to development coaches that maybe aren't working with the level of player that the pedigree of that shooter that you kind of work with right now? So if they were at that tier under, maybe the average high school age kid, what are some like snippets in regards to footwork? What are some things that you would suggest to make sure that you implement into a coach that's getting into a gym with players and trying to give them good feedback on, you know, building that base that you talked about?
Try to be in a position to push evenly with your legs. So I like legs to be in a fairly similar position. I don't mind a slight stagger where the right foot ends up slightly forward, because we can still be in a very similar position, which will allow us to push evenly with their legs. If we are in a dramatically different foot position with our right leg way out in front, then we end up pushing forward with our left foot and up with our right, and our legs are doing two different things. So be in a position to push evenly with both legs as much as you possibly can. Use the footwork that is most efficient in that moment and is working away from the defender. So if you imagine a player cutting to their left, we don't want to stop left foot, right foot. The defender is over on this side, and if my footwork brings me back towards the defender in my shot, then I'm helping the defender. We want to try and be into right foot, left foot, where my momentum is still working away from the defender. Efficiency, and then equality, I guess equality, or symmetry will be a better word. Like, push symmetrically with both sides of your body so that you can go straight up. Those are the things that I try and focus on.
That's awesome, Coach, again. And I've really enjoyed this. Coach, we chatted about it a little bit, but I think everybody on this session and everybody that watches this replay in the coming days, they'd agree. We'd love to have you back on if you're available.
I have another topic already worked out that I'm happy to go into, and I'll do as many of these as you guys would like. So let me know when you'd like to do it, and we can work it out.
We will. I'll reach out to you personally, Coach. I just want to say again, while we've got this room full of people, and then again for all the people that are watching this, I can't express our gratitude enough for your time and sharing your knowledge. And you know, it's always fun to see instructors like yourself that got a lot up here, but also you mentioned just now, I got fired up about that question, but you've got a lot of passion, and you know, it's easy to see that you're in love with this game and what you do. So appreciate you sharing that. I think that's as important as a lot of the knowledge and the nuggets coming across right now. Is everybody's kind of been locked into their little hole for a while, and it's opportunities like this to exchange with professionals like yourself that'll keep us kind of moving forward. So thank you again, Coach, so much for being here today.
Well, it was my pleasure, and thank you guys for arranging these opportunities. Like we couldn't do this without you guys doing what you're doing, and then to the people in the room, like, thank you for giving up your time. I probably do sit here and shout at my computer all the time, but it's more fun when there's people on the other end. Get on my newsletter. The replies that you send come to me, and so we can have a conversation. And I look forward to. I now do clinics around the world, but just starting out getting into Europe. So I'm happy to come to your country and do some youth clinics in the future, and just sort of show the drill progressions I go through to teach some of these habits. So thanks for everything. And I realize the poor players that are going to be the first time that the gym's open and the coaches come sprinting through the doors with all this information that we've learned over the last 2 months or the future months. Like I'm excited to see what happens to the game just because of this opportunity that we've been given, unfortunately.
Thanks again, Coach. We'll be in touch, and we hope to see you back on soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time.